Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Bang the Drum podcast. A little different version today. We're doing an interview with Ken Rodgers from NFL Films. I've talked to Ken a few times over the years. We're going to talk about some hard knock stuff and a few other things I've got scheduled here for you, Ken. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Always great to talk with you.
Yeah, good seeing you again. Explain, if you will, for those that don't know, your role in NFL Films, how long you've been there, your background, that sort of thing.
Boy, this is season 25 for me. 25. My first season was 2001. And I really appreciate that because not many people get to stay at one job that long. I know, it used to be a thing maybe in our parents' generation that you'd start a job and that company would be there the whole time. But things move so fast in today's economy and corporate structure that who would have thought that, certain big car dealerships or car manufacturers or computer companies would just disappear. So the fact that NFL Films is here and has been for 65 years is pretty great. I'm glad to have been part of the last third of its history, which tells you how long it's been around. And now move up to be the executive producer here at NFL Films, which means I have more, sort of oversight over all the creative of all the various projects, along with our head of content, Keith Cosrow. So the two of us are sort of teaching the next generation what we went through. We really grew up under Steve Sable here as filmmakers. Our first 12 to 15 years here was under Steve, and he passed on so many great lessons that now we're passing those lessons on, making sure that 65 years isn't the end of NFL Films. It's really just going to be the first part of a history long after we're gone.
Yeah, it's a great history. His dad, Ed Sable, right? Way back when, right? It's amazing, like how he started. And Steve, I thought Steve was great as well. So
they were the best. Two Hall of Famers.
Yeah, was it John Facenda, that old voice? Is that right?
John Facenda, yep.
Yeah,
and,
that voice. And then for me, probably someone a little closer to my age, Harry Callis did some stuff for you guys too, right? Oh, he was. I hear his voice now.
I know.
I just think football. I know he's Phillies guy, really. If you're
That's right.
Phillies.
I grew up with him as a Phillies guy, and then when I came to NFL Films, I mean, I met lots of players and coaches when I first started, but when I met Harry Callis in a VO booth and got to tap him on the shoulder when it was time for him to read one of my scripts,
awesome.
That was it. That was heaven. I couldn't believe it.
His voice was. I mean, I've got. I think I told you this in the past. I've got some of those recorded right from, not as old as I wish I had, but from like 92, 93, 94, and his voice on that is still. It's that time of year, and it's hard to believe it's that time of year. I'm sure you're thinking the same thing. Here we are, end of July. It's incredible. We're here.
It just keeps coming.
It does. Things fly fast. So we went to Bengals camp on Sunday. My co-host couldn't join me tonight, but it was a little toasty. It's been a little warm here, so we're getting in Ohio, right? We're getting Florida weather without the perks of the ocean and winter. It's raining every day and steamy. It's been a weird summer, but
seems to be it. I just spoke with some of the directors up in Buffalo, and they said, I asked how it was going because they're a little north, should be fine. No, it's in the 90s. We're sweating. We're dying up here. Summer camp is summer camp.
It is, no matter where you're at. And before we get to the Buffalo Bills, because we're kind of friendly foes with the Buffalo Bills in Cincinnati, right? But I know you probably, if you remember me, you know what I'm going to ask. Instead of the Buffalo Bills, I've got it for people that didn't hear it in the past. Like, talk about that the work you did with the two Bills. Mm-hmm. I think, to me, that's my favorite, and I love it. There's a lot of stuff you've done I love, but how they're ribbing you on that show, and what it was like being around when those two were somewhat reunited, Parcells and Belichick I'm talking about. Just briefly, if you could, just talk about that, because it would mean something to me for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It was a therapy session. It really was. It was almost like marriage counseling. We knew it would probably be that way because we spoke to both of them separately, and it was, let's just talk to each other. We had to negotiate on where they were going to meet, and it wasn't going to be necessarily on either one of their turfs. It was going to be somewhere neutral. So the Giants locker room made a lot of sense. And we actually placed the camera in the third position on around the table. In fact, you can see the table is still over in my corner. That is the table
That's awesome.
that they sat at. And so we brought a bunch of we brought a bunch of tables and set a camera up as if it was the third person, because we wanted to feel what it would be like from a personal point of view to literally sit at the table with these two. That ended up being the right size table, and when they were done at the end of the interview, they signed it. And everybody was like, "What are we going to do with that table?" I said, "Why? I need it in my office. That's my conference table." So it's still here. It was amazing to watch them be very tacit and a little worried. I think in the beginning, hey coach, and they wouldn't really look at each other, and then they started to look at each other, and then they started to talk, and they started to reminisce, and then they got to apologizing for things they've done. And they got to the point where they said, "Yeah, there's love between us." And you could see at the end of the film, when I took them up to the Giants Hall of Fame up in the suite, I had asked them, "Can we go to the Jets locker room now?" And if you remember at the end of the film, they turn against me and they're finally united. And the reason why we use that is all of a sudden they went from barely sort of looking at each other in the beginning of this 4-hour section that we shot with them, to all of a sudden joining up, turning down a request together, and literally walked out of the building without like really saying goodbye. They just left. They were finally united. So I really see it as like this counseling session that we were, lucky enough to be part of. Really, they did the hard work of sitting down with each other. And it was really a lesson for me of like, after a couple hours, I think it was over. I think that was the end of the hostilities, and we should all do that if we have a chance with people.
Yeah, well, I was talking from a work standpoint to someone today, my boss, actually, like the difference of being, no matter what age we're in, if you get somebody face to face, they don't talk that way to each other. They'll be nicer, they'll loosen up a little bit more. It's easy, to type something or whatever else, right? But that's right. A great living example of that. So Hard Knocks with the Buffalo Bills, August 5th, right? HBO. Like before we start, I questioned, I got a few things for you, but I can't remember if I've addressed this with you before, but to give the viewers like an example of this, for a 1-hour show, how many hours do you have to record to trim it to that 1 hour?
It's usually about 400 hours per week that we shoot. So that's one part of the difficulty of Hard Knocks is the amount we shoot. Because right now, maybe one of your questions would be who you're going to feature. We don't know yet. I don't know. What's happening at practice is whatever is going to make the show. So there's 90 possible characters on the roster. I would guess we're going to show Josh Allen in episode 1 of Hard Knocks. But really beyond that it doesn't really get for sure until we shoot everything. So we shoot that much, and then we have about 2 days to turn it around, Monday and Tuesday, to get on air Tuesday night. So you don't have an opportunity to do a lot of options. You have to watch the material, and we have 100 people that work on the show, and there's probably about 40 editors that are going through all the material. They have to make a decision. This is what's best. And we probably get about 2 hours of it on Saturday night that we're looking at, and by Monday night, 48 hours, we've turned that really about 2 hours of separate sections. Here's something on Dawson Knox. Here's something on Damar Hamlin. Here's something on Josh Allen. All these separate segments, we have to turn the 2 hours into one and figure out what order that goes in to tell a story. So it's pretty intense. You have to trust your instincts. There's not a lot of, let me think about it overnight. We got to make a decision, and it's got to get on air. And it's turned out great, and I think it's a testament to our talent, but it's also to people's instincts. Mm-hmm. We are just fans, like any Buffalo Bill fan, any NFL fan. What we think is interesting is what we're going to put on air. We don't really overthink it. We don't try to tell a story, out of our heads. It's whatever happened is the story. Our job is to translate it. So it's a lot of work, but in a way, you don't have enough time to really overthink it. And we've grown really good at just going with it. Just go with what we think is best and make it great. And people seem to respond.
Absolutely, they do. got a few questions on that. But Liev Schreiber doing the narration again, is that right?
He is, yes.
Yeah, I called him Liev. I'm one of the few people in there. You know why? Because I just
Why?
read Cigar Aficionado, and he's in there, and they said that's how to pronounce it. I didn't know until a couple days
Yeah,
ago, to be honest
yeah.
with you.
He is the best, and I
He's
saw that.
outstanding.
I am a big cigar guy myself,
Oh, yeah.
so I'm with you there. And Liev's great. He's equivalent in our heads to the theme music of Hard Knocks. That those are two things that no matter what team is on, no matter how many wins they had, whoever the head coach is, doesn't matter what the quarterback, you know football is back when you hear his voiceover and the theme music for Hard Knocks.
Absolutely.
The two are just, they've been around for so long that they're not changing. And I hope the way you talked about John Facenda, that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, there's someone who's 10, 12 years old right now and grew to love the NFL and remembers, oh, I remember when Liev Schreiber would voice Hard Knocks. Yeah. I hope that happens. It's easy to forget in the moment, but, we're making memories for kids.
Absolutely. I think it's happening already. Like, for me, like Harry Callis, and when I hear that music and Schreiber now, that's what I think of, right? And we talked about it once. I doubt it. I was like, that's not really him. You remember that discussion. I don't know if you do. It's probably 6 years ago. Yeah. But he sounds so different on there than like when he's Ray Donovan, right? As he should. But
yeah, it's a character.
It's hard to pair those two together, right? So
his narrator is a character. I mean, he sees it as a character. The narrator of Hard Knocks is a character, and sometimes we write lines, and he says, "I wouldn't say that." The character wouldn't say that. I would say it this way, and it's like, wow. Boy, you are a real actor. If the narration on Hard Knocks, you're differentiating between, I would say this word, not that word.
That's great.
He's a genius when it comes to his craft.
He's so good. He's good at a lot of things, right? Acting and his work, outside of that, as they detail in the magazines, it's tremendous. That team selection process, I've always been curious about that. Do you start with a bucket of teams? How do you narrow that down, and how does that come into fruition?
Honestly, we start with every team. We look at every team, and it's pretty easy to cross teams out that, recently appeared on the show. We weren't going to go back to Chicago. Detroit was recently. The New York Jets were recent. We did the AFC East in season or AFC North in season last year. And so, there's a reason for a lot of teams that it's just not right for us. It's not right for them. It's not right for the league. And then you're left with, it could be a dozen, it could be 3 teams that you're like, what? That would be a good show. That would be good. Buffalo was obviously one this year, and I think they've been growing in that spot. And I think we've reached a point, certainly after Josh Allen wins MVP, that people know a lot about. They know of the Buffalo Bills, but they don't know a lot about the specific players and what makes that team tick. They've been around a lot. They've been deep in the playoffs, but they're not quite nationally known as well as they should be. They, of course, are nationally known. They're the Buffalo Bills. Any NFL film, but not a lot of people know the details of how that team works. An Andy Reid team, I think we've grown used to what that means, or a Mike Tomlin team. We know what that means. How the Buffalo Bills have been in this spot for 5-6 years now, at the top of their division, fairly easily, pretty successfully, going on postseason runs, have an MVP, get to the point where it's time now to take the final step. They all know that. There's just a lot of intrigue that usually doesn't come with a team that made the deep into the postseason once. We're now at a point where everyone knows the Buffalo Bills are where they are. They're going to be one of the great teams of the year. And I think a lot of people don't really know what makes up that camaraderie at training camp to lead to postseason success that they've certainly had and are looking to continue. So it's really unique for us. They go away to camp. They go to a college for a couple weeks. It's really interesting to have that fan base and a fairly small market team that's so legendary in their
Absolutely.
vociferousness and how much they love their team. I mean, it just seems to be a team this year that everyone's sort of interested in. And every year we sort of go back to zero and say, well, who do you want to learn more about? And, it's not always the Super Bowl winning team or a team that went to the Super Bowl. It's sort of the team that you're like, I've heard a lot about them, but I still don't know them very, very well. And I think Buffalo is going to become much like Detroit did a couple years ago, everyone's second favorite team. Like that's the way I see it. I don't think you can dislike the Bills. The Bills are hard to not cheer for. Everyone loves them. Certainly there in Cincinnati. They become, I think it's a team like Detroit that can become everybody's second favorite team after they see them on Hard Knocks.
I think that's a fair, and the pressure's on. Like the drama is there, right? That pressure is immense on that team right now. You think back, the success Kelly and all them had, but Marv Levy was more of a outgoing. McDermott's he's pretty. I met him once, and after I was talking to him, I was like, all right, have a good day. Because there's not, I'm interested in that, how much he opens up. It'd surprise me if he does, where Marv Levy, when they went, he's singing, he's doing everything else, right? So he's a character. Any chance you or anybody on your staff's going to jump through some tables up there and get that on? That'd be some good moments there. The Bills Mafia.
I've gotten to the age where I like to sit and watch.
Same.
The Bills fans are I don't want to say they're crazy. They're just intense.
Rabid.
I mean, it's not necessarily lack of sanity. It's almost clarity in their thinking that this is number one. This is what I live for. And it's really going to be fascinating, I think, compared to a lot of different cities where, the stadium is sort of in a commercial area. Their stadium, which is going into its final year, sort of like Green Bay, where, it's just in a neighborhood and people park on people's lawns for $20 and there's kids out selling water in front of their house. And it's a very neighborhoody thing. So, it certainly exists in other places, but this is one of the sort of original in-town stadiums that I think we're going to see a side to fandom that you don't see everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I don't know if you can answer this yet, and you probably can't, but I got to ask it anyway. That heartbreak, that championship heartbreak, we get it. Believe me, we get it. But you look at it, and now they've been close, right? There's one obstacle for them. Well, two. The Bengals beat them two, but they keep tripping up, right? They don't play their best games in those situations for whatever reason. They get tense, right? Allen does. I mean, he's a special player. I covered him. I said he's the number one player in the draft when he came out, and we did it. So I'm a big fan of his. But will you harken back any to Kelly, Thurman, any Bruce Smith? Will you bring any of those guys on to talk about that, or do you know yet, or is that a possibility?
We don't know yet. It certainly is a possibility. I know we're having, talks every day here about what's actually happening. So we, as I said earlier, we try not to impose our own storylines. So if it's a storyline there at camp, I think we'll do that. And we certainly will set the context of here's who the Bills are. They certainly have this past. And then this recent success, but ultimate, just falling just short. Whether or not they are talking about last year, or if they've moved on and just cut it off and said, forget last year, we're starting, this is the 2025 season, or if they harken back to the 90s Bills, or they don't. Whatever they do, that's what the story will be. So I think whatever answer I were to give you is going to be based on what the Bills are doing. And you'll get a good viewpoint in episode 1 of how they're approaching this really unique situation of they need to take that final step. They're not in a place where a lot of teams have been the last 5 years of being there, and Cincinnati might be closest,
Championship or bust, right?
Right.
Really.
They're there. So how are they dealing with it? That's what the overall question of the series is okay, how are they starting out this season and to build a culture, to build this relationship between players that's going to get them all the way?
Yeah, it's going to be, they added Ohio State Joey Bosa, who's been injured a lot. We know him real well here, right? I'm an
Yeah.
Ohio State fan, so that's interesting. Some of the rookies they added, a generation, his dad played in the NFL forever. Porter, that's interesting. So there's a lot of moving pieces there. I can see a lot of
Oh, yeah.
directions you'll go, and
Oh, yeah.
there's no doubt that championship hangover is going to come up at some point, especially with Josh, right? He's going to talk about it. He's been pretty open about it. So special player, special moment there. I think that's all I have for you in questions for the Bills, but I do want to ask you, if you don't mind, when you think about last season and that in-season piece, how that's different, because you did the Bengals last year. It was very good as well. Did you learn anything about Burrow that surprised you or the Bengals, and is that a lot different than doing the – I know it is, but fundamentally is it different than the preseason piece of Hard Knocks?
Whew, it's so different. I'll tell you, but more different than we thought it was going to be. We thought it's going to be different in that we're doing 4 teams instead of 1. So, of course, the time is sort of spread out and you can't get deep into any team. And the reason we did that is when you pick one team, you're sort of beholden to how their season goes. And when you have a team that maybe is already headed the wrong direction by then, who wants to watch a team go belly up, and not succeed? In a division, someone's going to win the division.
Yeah,
We're going to have a winner. So it provides an ending, which at training camp is who makes the roster.
Yes.
And in season now we can say the ending is who's winning the division, and then you continue from then on them trying to make it. But then what we learned as well that was different is the in-season tone of all the franchises is so much more serious.
Yeah.
Like, it is real. Not only is it real, even in Cleveland last year, but certainly in Cincinnati and Pittsburgh and Baltimore, the stakes were as big as you can get. It's, are we going to make the playoffs or are we not? And we saw every week in Cincinnati, it was win or go home. It was win or go home. It was so serious that the stakes were so clear. We didn't get characters singing, their alma mater or, playing jokes on each other. So the tone became really football centric. And I thought that was great in that we got to see the preparation and the intensity of these players. So when you see someone like Burrow do his job over and over and over again and see how amazing he is, not just at the concentration on game day, but elsewhere, and the amount of time he puts in, it's hard not to be super impressed.
Yeah.
And you'd expect someone like that to not have a personality because their job requires so much of them. You'd think they're just a hard-ass, boring, but he's actually this incredibly charismatic person. And it makes you really appreciate just the ability to be a fan of someone like that.
Yeah.
You really you hate to see anyone like that not have their dreams come true. I want his dream to come true, by the end of his career. Just like I want to, I've become a fan of just the NFL, and it's great to cheer for your team. You want to cheer for your team, but there's just a lot of guys out there who I hope do well. I hope they do well because they really are amazing at their job, and they deserve to have their dreams come true, just like all of us have our dreams to come true. And so when I cheer for people, I sort of have, maybe I've matured to the point where I don't wish anyone bad. I might wish the person or teams that I'm cheering for a little bit more good luck.
Yeah.
But I no longer have the Dallas sucks type of mentality that I might have that I had in my teenage years. I love everybody now.
Yeah. You're better off. Speaking of Dallas, as we go into the end season this year, you got the NFC East, right?
How about that?
Yeah. So when you talk about that, when I was a kid in high school and whatever, we talked about it on our show even, the East was just unbelievable. The Cowboys kind of fell off a little bit, and then came back with Jimmy Johnson. But, Joe Gibbs, Bill Parcells, then Philly with Buddy Ryan, they didn't win, but they were good, right? And those, Giants, Skins, then the Skins, and then the Cowboys came along with Jimmy and then won 3, one with Switzer. But, those teams dominated, and those rivalries are fierce still. That's going to be good, I think.
Yeah, I grew up here outside of Philly during the Buddy years, and Randall and Reggie were my heroes, and so many of those guys on that defense and offense. Mike Quick still lives down the street from me, and like
Oh, really? Quick
once
six.
in a while I'll see him in my local cigar store, and I'm like, get all nervous. That's Mike Quick. Holy, I can't believe Mike Quick's in the same store as me.
Great.
I still am such a fan of those guys.
He's
But
tough.
the NFC East is always very high profile and very competitive. It doesn't really matter whether or not the team has a good record or bad record. They come after each other, and I think that's what's best in the in division in season show is it. I think at one of these times we're going to get that moment where a team that's out of the playoffs steps on the dream of another team and kicks them out of the playoffs in the last week of the season, and you can't get more drama than that.
Absolutely not. I post some old clips where I have old games recorded, right? And the Bounty Bowl where Jimmy Johnson he's walking and he walks back and said, I think he called Buddy Ryan fat. So those heated moments, Parcells is always great for a quote, and Joe Gibbs was in his own little way, right? So
He was, yeah.
It's changed a lot in that division from a coaching standpoint this year too. So I think it's Dayball stayed, which was questionable. You got a great coach in Sirianni who played college ball in Ohio. It always comes back to Ohio. You know that, Ken. Everything comes back to Ohio. But
The cradle of football.
that's right. Cradle coach in Miami, and then up was it John Carroll, right? The amount of guys they put out, it's crazy. So
Yes.
I think that's going to be a fun to watch this year. So that division, I don't know. The Washington looked really good last year too, right? So the Eagles coming off Super Bowl, so that'll be fun as well. So
I'd love to tell you what I think is going to happen, but whatever I pick is going to be wrong.
same here. I come on here and confidently say what, then forget about
No more
it.
predictions for me. I've given up on those years ago.
I get it. Thanks so much for taking the time with us, Ken. That was
course.
great. We're looking forward to it. I'm excited to see the Bills. So it's nice when you like a team, and like we said, Allen's likable. So good luck with all that, and we'll have you on again.
I appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.